More than 100 migrants from Texas, including children, were dropped outside the vice president's residence in sub-freezing temperatures on Christmas Eve. Humanitarian groups gave them blankets, warm clothes, food, and shelter.
The governor of Texas is not giving any sort of communication with your group.
Absolutely nothing.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here for Yellow Hammer Now. Hope you've been having a great Merry Christmas and a happy holidays moving towards the new year. Our friends in the media and their Democrats are very upset about what Greg Abbott did recently, where he took the problem at the border and showed it to the people responsible for the problem at the border. They are very sad and very angry about dropping off illegal immigrants outside the house of Kamala Harris, and on Christmas Eve of all times, a time where they mostly spend their time telling everyone how much they don't appreciate Christians unless they can use it as a weapon like they're trying to do here.
The newest border fight between the Biden administration and Texas Governor Greg Abbott. More than 100 migrants bussed from Texas to Washington arrived at Vice President Kamala Harris's official residence on Christmas Eve when it was below freezing. A White House spokesperson called it a shameful stunt and claimed Abbott had endangered the lives of asylum seekers. The governor's spokesman called the administration hypocrites and said its immigration policies have overwhelmed border cities. The Supreme Court is still deciding if the border restrictions known as Title 42 should stay in place while legal challenges play out.
I'd like to bring in Ron Brownstein now. He's the senior editor for The Atlantic. Ron, it's always great to have you on. I want to touch on this other incident involving migrants over the weekend when 3 busloads of people were dropped off outside the residence of Vice President Kamala Harris on Christmas Eve. The White House is blaming Texas Governor Greg Abbott for that. Not to mention, I think it was 18 degrees that night. How much longer do you think these types of stunts can go on? And where do you think public opinion is on these sorts of things?
Yeah, I mean, as you see in the report from El Paso, clearly the number of undocumented immigrants is putting enormous pressure on border states and border cities. But the idea that busing people in the middle of the night thousands of miles away and dropping them off on a freezing sidewalk is a serious attempt at a solution is kind of ludicrous. I mean, Governor Abbott is behaving more as if he's creating programming for Fox News than he is trying to solve the problem. In terms of public opinion, I have covered the immigration issue since the early 90s, since Prop 187 in California, and public opinion has been very consistent that they want a comprehensive solution. Americans do want the border to be under control. They do want the rule of law to be followed. They also recognize that it's unrealistic to deal with this through enforcement only, much less to deport 11 million or so people who are here in the country illegally. And, we saw both in 2006 and 2013, bipartisan majorities in the Senate produce a package that reflected public opinion, that provided more resources for the border security, that provided for a steady flow of future workers, and provided some legal status for those who are here. And each time that passed, once under a Republican president, George W. Bush, once under a Democratic president, Barack Obama, the Republican-controlled House refused to even consider it. So we're talking about well on 2 decades of stalemate in which, as you see, the problems continue to get worse from every angle and every dimension.
More than 100 migrants from Texas, including children, were dropped outside the vice president's residence in sub-freezing temperatures on Christmas Eve. Humanitarian groups gave them blankets, warm clothes, food, and shelter.
The governor of Texas is not giving any sort of communication with your group.
Absolutely nothing.
Tatiana Laborde says her migrant aid group was alerted by other nonprofits in Texas on Friday afternoon that the buses would arrive in Washington on Sunday. They came a day earlier.
There is a way to do what Texas is doing in a way that preserves that humanity, providing them with warm meals, letting us know when the buses are coming ahead of time.
The White House called the move by Governor Greg Abbott a cruel, dangerous, and shameful stunt. A spokesperson for the governor called the administration hypocrites, whose immigration policies have overwhelmed Texas border towns. In El Paso, desperate migrants have been sleeping on the streets, braving uncharacteristically cold temperatures.
There are babies in the streets. There are babies. There are little kids here. There are all kinds of people here.
El Paso extended an emergency emergency declaration over the weekend as it struggles to accommodate the growing migrant population, while the U.S. immigration system is being overwhelmed. Amid all that uncertainty,
We just go 1 week or 1 day at a time and giving our best to be ready.
The Biden administration moved to end Title 42, which allows border officials to deny asylum seekers. But that policy remains in place as the Supreme Court considers a lawsuit from Republican governors. And that decision could come any day.
Now, give the media and their Democrats a little bit of credit for trying to use the holiday as a reason to be offended by something they're already offended about. Greg Abbott and others have been sending these migrants, illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call them, north and east for quite some time. But now they're very mad about it because even on Christmas, on Christmas, they're amassing at the border. On Christmas, they're coming in and they're hurting Americans just like they're doing every single day. And if the people who are pretending to be upset about this because it's happening on Christmas, a day they truly hold sacred, well, then they might care about it the rest of the year, but they don't. They're frauds, they're trying to manipulate people, and nobody buys it. Again, the only people upset about this are our friends in the media and they're Democrats. Normal human beings love this. They love that people like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden in New York and Chicago and everywhere else are having to deal with these issues that they fully support. Reap what you sow, whether it's happening on Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, New Year, whatever. Happy holidays. You deserve this.